Welcome to Transformative Principal. I'm so excited about this conversation. This is a recording of a Twitter space that Damon Hargraves and I did. If you remember, Damon Hargraves and I worked together in Kodiak Island Borough School District many years ago, and we stay in touch, and I love talking with him whenever I can. And this was no exception. We talk about ChatGPT, and there's some pretty interesting stuff in there. And, these are all just ideas spitballing. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. But here's what's really amazing. After this conversation, I got connected with a startup called School AI that's working on some stuff about using AI in schools, specifically ChatGPT. And so I'm looking forward to doing some more work with them. But what we're doing is we're doing these user interviews where we learn about what people are thinking, what they are experiencing, and what they think would be good for them to be able to do with AI. So if you are interested in talking with us, we're still looking for people to talk with. Go to transformativeprincipal.org/episode 518. For this episode, there's a link to schedule a time with us. Now, if you're thinking, yeah, I might want to do that sometime, don't wait, because we're almost done with our first round of interviews, and we want to get you in there as soon as possible. So go to transformativeprincipal.org/episode 518 and sign up for a time. I look forward to seeing you there. And here's my interview with Damon about ChatGPT. I mean, it's not really an interview, more of a conversation. Damon, tell me what's going on. What are you thinking?
Well, first off, can you hear me?
Yeah, welcome.
Dude, hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I haven't talked to you in forever.
I know, man. I've just been reading these articles coming out of Education Week, and I keep thinking of you, and I was like, man, we just need to do a Twitter space.
Well, I think that was a good idea. I am recording it so we can save it, and if I can figure out how to get it out of here and into my podcast, then I'll put it on there too.
I think there's a way to do that. I've heard about a couple other people doing so. But
Well,
yeah, these chatbots, man. Schools in New York are starting to ban them on the networks and block them from access.
shocker.
Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What's going on?
It's so stupid because every kid has a phone. Like, come on, what are we doing? That kind of stuff, like, it's the wrong thing. And I was gonna say that, but it's just like
I did. That's what I want to talk to you.
it's so crazy. Like, yeah, so my philosophy here is really like you've got to these things are going to exist in the future in some way, shape, or form, regardless of what is happening. Like it's just going to be a part of our world, and to ignore that or to think of anything else is just it's irresponsible and a total waste of time, because you could do so much better to say, hey guys, here's this tool, go ahead and start using it and let's see what we get. And so you get the basic background knowledge stuff, the basic, like, what are your thoughts on this thing, completely out of the way, but the kids don't actually know it. They're just going to cut and paste, right? But then if you give them a chance and like say, okay, read what it said. Now, what do you think about that? That's where the skill comes in. And that's what we need to be doing as teachers.
I saw a meme maybe yesterday that went something along the lines of, if you are assigning writing, then you're in trouble. If you're teaching writing, then there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yes, exactly.
I thought that was
kind
of put it in a nutshell. If you're relying on assignments that could probably have been Googled anyway, then yeah, this is messing you up big time.
Yeah. And
if you're more concerned of actually teaching writing, then maybe this is a tool. I don't know.
Yeah. I seem to remember you saying something very similar to that, I don't know, in 2014 when we were at Kodiak Middle School together. So, come on.
Yeah. It's nothing
Oh, Damon's getting out of his car, so looks like we lost him for a second. So, Jenna, welcome. See that you joined. Glad to glad to have you here. Oh, are you at Central Valley here in Washington? Right by me? That'd be cool. If you are, I'm gonna invite you to speak, and I'm gonna invite Chris to speak. Of course, you don't have to agree to come on. That's totally fine. But if you want to, I'd love to hear from you as well. Well, they're jockeying for position. We'll see what we get. Oops, sorry.
All right, Jethro, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
now I can hear you. Welcome back. So we were saying, Damon, this is stuff that we were talking about back in 2014. Oh, I just lost him. All right. Well, Jenna and Chris, I'm all alone here now. So feel free to jump in if you would like to. If not, no worries. It's totally fine. Yeah, I the thing is I've played with the Chat GPT thing and I've seen some really good stuff on it and seen some cool things that you can do with it. So I think that it's really powerful, and um, I think we should be doing more with it than blocking it. Like it just doesn't make any sense at all. Well, Damon, I invited you, so whenever you can accept that invite to speak. There we go.
All
You're
right, I'm
back.
back. I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Twitter Spaces doesn't like handoffs very much.
Yeah.
So Jethro, you talked a little bit about playing with Chat GPT. Have you tried any other of the other chat bots or any of
Um,
the other new machine learning, AI, art, graphic
yeah.
stuff?
So, so check this out. If you send a crappy email to betteremail at jethrojones.com, you will actually get a better email back. And so I created that and using OpenAPI's DaVinci language learning model, and it's pretty
Okay.
cool. And like, so you can go literally onto any email and just send it to that account, and it'll come back with a better email. So you can send something that's really poor, get something good back. And I've been using it for here. I'll let you in on a little secret. So I take show notes every time I do a podcast interview. And what I've been doing is I've been taking those show notes and I've been putting them into ChatGPT and or into DaVinci and saying, turn these notes into a blog post or turn these notes into a Twitter thread or turn these notes into an email. And I've literally used it to make emails and tweet um, Twitter threads and a bunch of other things, which I think is I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I think it's great. It saves me time.
So so Jethro, how far away are we from teachers being able to say, I need a guided lesson plan for seventh grade math class, teaching these content standards for a class of 25 students with these demographics. I want it to be culturally relevant, and we're going to be teaching at this time of year with these assets at our disposal, ready to go. I need a month's worth of lesson plans
Yeah,
that creates it on the fly. How far away are we from that?
I think that we are very close because you train these models by what you give them. And so if you give them a ton of lesson plans, they can start to figure that stuff out. And so it's close. It just needs somebody to create that and make it happen.
So you've got the library of your potential curriculum, and then you've got an AI that's tied to that library, but is also tied into your student information system. So
Yeah.
it's seeing the demographics of your class, it's seeing maybe the progression and the latest test scores from your students,
Uh,
and making adjustments on the fly. I mean,
yeah. I mean, the real challenge comes in like you basically for that would have to host your own language learning model and do all that stuff in house. But I think that as ed tech company is probably right now working on doing something like that. And I mean that if I understood how to do it more, I would jump on that bandwagon and start producing that because it'd be amazing. Because that's what we're all searching for with all the ed tech that we're going after and all the data that we're collecting
teachers
on
pay
kids.
teachers, just
Yeah,
like all that stuff.
totally.
Yeah. Teachers are going out right now searching for that, trying to build it, and because they know their kids, they're modifying and not wanting to just follow the canned curriculum. They're wanting to go out online and whatever resources they can find and pull together to fit for their own students. What if they had a power tool in the form of an AI that was like a private secretary that worked
Yeah,
simply to research and develop um, supporting content or plans or
yeah.
feed them ideas or yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
so this is where like it, so I posted this thread and I just added it to the thread of this space. So if you're listening to this and you go down and look at what I just posted, you'll see it connected to this thread. And it talks about executive functioning skills from an interview I did with Mitch Weathers. And there's like 7 or 8 different things on there. And what's cool is that I was able to take my notes and just post this, and it was good enough, and it was good enough that I could post it and feel like it was decent, and so I'm looking at my views, and I got 402 views from it, which is pretty good for my tweets. Like I don't get a ton of engagement, and I got 7 engagements from that of hearts and retweets. So I think that there's some good stuff there that I can do that. But here's where I think it's really powerful. When I am stuck on an idea or I have something, I can use this to help me flesh out that idea instead of calling you and saying, "Let me do this," which is I like calling you and having you help me flesh out ideas better. Um, but in a pinch, this will do this will do just fine and give you
So it's
some
it's
guidance.
an additional source that you can call, right?
Exactly. Yep. And you know that that matters a lot. So my question for you, Damon, is you're ready to write a dissertation now, right?
Yeah, I already started, man.
So how are you going to incorporate this into your dissertation writing?
Well, it's funny because um, some of this AI kind of machine learning technology I already have started using. One of the things that they're actually teaching now, at least in my school for my doctorate, was how to use different tools to write the dissertation. So rather than just sitting down with pen and paper or keyboard and mouse and writing, they've been explicitly teaching how to utilize different dictation tools, and I know that the back end of those is using machine learning and different forms of AI to
Mm-hmm.
help with the dictation. So that's already in place. What does it mean for if I could provide talking points and utilize um, some form of AI to assist me in research? Man, that would be amazing. That would just be fun.
Yeah.
Navigating all these Boolean searches can get a little tedious. Um, but also being able to use a tool to help, summarize this research for me really quick to see if it's fruitful, and just being able to do that on the fly. I could see being able to do that. There's a tool out there, I think it's called Research Rabbit, um, that really helps you. It's kind of like Google Scholar on
Oh
steroids,
yeah.
um,
Yes, I've heard of this.
and it's a phenomenal tool. It what it does is it looks at scholarly, researched papers, and then basically makes connections to other research papers. So, and then it almost, as it starts unfolding, it almost looks like the old TweetDeck tool, where you can develop
Hmm.
columns of sources and things like that. I could see AI becoming a big part of a tool like Research Rabbit, and it really kind of, I don't know, just changing the way we do research. Again, it's like a whole team of research assistants in your pocket, almost like a full-time secretary that can think and access and collate in an instant.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
It, yeah, I mean that is amazing. And here's the other thing is that when you have those kinds of tools at your disposal, then you can do things differently than you would be doing them otherwise. And I just think that that is really cool because it gives you this superpower basically where you can do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And so like this guy a while ago shared this thing where he helped a landscaper um, do the thing that I did with the better email, and so that that guy could communicate with people now. So if you think about somebody with disabilities who's always at a disadvantage because they can't communicate as effectively as others, like this opens up a whole new world for them. Just predictive text in iOS for my daughter has made a huge difference for her being able to communicate with her friends. That it just it's incredible and empowering, and to think that somebody would say no, you can't use this tool that will actually help you um like show some of your brilliance that is hard for us to see as normal people. It's really disappointing.
So here's a question. So, do you think the bigger impact for these types of tools will be in how students, uh, I guess, how students work or cheat or circumvent the teacher's assignment? Or do you think the bigger change will be in how teachers are creating, accessing, developing curriculum on the fly?
Honestly, I think it's going to take teachers forever to utilize this in a powerful way for them, because the first thing we're thinking of is that kids are going to be cheating or whatever. And as I've said for decades now, if if you have an assignment where a student can cheat or a test where a student can cheat, then that's on you as the educator. And if they can, then they will, and you should expect it and be prepared for it and not be bent out of shape that they're doing the thing that you set them up to do.
Yeah, again, if we're giving writing assignments, man, we're in trouble. If we're teaching
Yeah.
writing, then this is just another tool for us to access and for our
Yeah.
students to access.
Yep. I
Hmm.
mean, th- that is so true. And that tweet that you shared, that I will tweet also. Where was it? I saw it in your feed, I thought.
I DM'd you, and it was in my feed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it just like that is really the truth. Like if you're teaching writing, um, then that's great. If you are Uh, yeah, ChatGPT will be brutal in classrooms where writing is assigned rather than taught. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's from the Education Week article, and I will link to that right now also in the thread for this.
Some of these other tools
Man,
that develop art, like where you can put in some directions and then it'll create an art piece. I've got one that I downloaded. It's just an app actually that runs on my computer. You can tell it to do things in the form of Van Gogh or in the form
yeah.
of Picasso. What do you see? How do you see that the more graphical AI tools? Is there any effect on education on the mainstream education that you see?
Yeah, I mean, for that, I think that'll be a little bit harder for people to to use to cheat, but to teach a specific, like, teach what it means in the style of Van Gogh with something that the kids can recognize and see. I think that's incredibly powerful. And to take like an idea that is current to them, like for example the Twitter logo of a blue bird, and do that in the style of Van Gogh. I do think that there's value in that, and teaching kids what the style of Van Gogh means so that they can recognize it when they see it. I mean, I took some sort of like world civilizations and some art classes, and I don't know anything about that stuff. And like when somebody says that it's like in the style of Van Gogh, I think I know what that could look like, but I couldn't like describe it to you, but I'm pretty sure I could spot it probably. And I
Well,
think
that's
there's real
funny, right?
value
Like
in doing that.
so much of art isn't very easily describable in words. You have to see it. So maybe these AIs become almost a form of a database for an art class to showcase what that art style is, because they're looking at that artist, that the AI is looking at that artist's catalog of everything they've ever done, right? So that
Hmm.
AI may know better, or at least be a very good source for what that artist's style is. And yes, you could probably find a written description, but being able to use an AI tool and take the same picture and compare and contrast how that photo would look painted through the lens of a different artist, would really help solidify what makes that artist style significant, or important. One thing about this
Yeah.
tool that I downloaded was that uh, Van Gogh was just one of the artists that I recognized out of a handful. There were a
Yeah.
ton of artists that I did not know who they were, but it made me curious,
Hmm.
and so I could see spending some time looking through and seeing what is their style, and then wanting to learn more about that artist.
Yeah,
So
totally. It's funny because I had the same exact reaction. I saw an artist that I had no idea who it was in one of these things, and I'm like, who in the world is that? And so I was like, I should go learn more about them because I think that looks really pretty. And so then I went and learned more. I don't remember who it was now because I didn't care that much. But I was like, that's interesting. I would be interested in checking that out. And so I'm putting a couple links in here into this thread of people who have done this thing exactly what you're talking about, um, in the style of Van Gogh, etc. And so I'm just putting these in. I'm such a good Spaces host that
man,
I'm
you
like
are.
adding
I'm impressed.
value with
That's
this.
why I wanted you to host. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's a sickness. I just can't help myself
Just
sometimes.
out of curiosity, are you on the phone and on the computer at the same time?
No, I am just on the phone,
Wow, man, you're
but
good.
being on the computer at the same time would be smart. I should have thought of that.
Next time.
So funny. So funny. Okay, well let's get back to this idea of how teachers are going to use this stuff because your oh my gosh, Bigfoot at bat. This one's great. Thank you, Stephen Green. Um, what are some ways that you see teachers actually using this? You shared the example of, being able to bring up a specific course or standard or reach a certain student. What else are you seeing as part of as something that teachers can use this to be beneficial for their courses?
Well, some things that I've been thinking about that I don't hear anybody else talking about are the AIs becoming kind of a silent partner with teachers as they're working with students. For years now, we've been working on different assessment tools to help teachers kind of take we call it a dipstick test every 8 weeks or so, or if a student's in an intervention, we might test them at the end of the week. What if there was an AI that was just quietly working in the background? If we want to get super, you know, kind of creepy a little bit, even, what if there were cameras in the classroom that were watching behaviors and watching how students are interacting with their peers, how students are working on their assignments and what their assignments are? What if all of that was just being fed into a system that was looking at all of that? So if
Mm,
there's an AI that could look at that, there's no other way to do it except for some sort of AI. There's just too much information. We've been working on data dashboards and ways of cataloging the data, and schools produce so much data. It's amazing. But it's difficult to utilize it all effectively. There does need to be an AI in place looking at all this stuff. Just
yeah.
the information that we already have, there would be things that we don't normally see that an AI would see, and could help and assist and recommend. And then to the extreme, maybe an AI that is really watching everything that's happening, and making suggestions and prompting. And when someone in class mentions Beethoven, that gets registered some way, and if there appears to be an interest in Beethoven, then there's the next day there's some additional information for that student or something. I could see things like that happening eventually.
Yeah, so I was listening to the concept gaming concepts podcast by Generation Esports, and they were one of the hosts was sharing how she was she was talking to the students, and one of the students said, "Well, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that part." And she said, "Well, can you explain to me how to, change out a carburetor on a V8 or something like that?" And the kid goes, "Oh, you care about what I know?" And like great teachers do what you're talking about all the time. But imagine if some kid said something or wrote something about Beethoven, and then just in time, all these resources were delivered to them, giving more information about Beethoven, knowing what they knew already, like having an idea of how far along they were, and then giving the right level of information that they could actually benefit from. And then imagine if that is delivered to them at or just barely above their reading level so that they could comprehend it and continue to grow. Like that kind of thing would be truly amazing and really would be cool. Now, the surveillance piece I'm not so big a fan of, but the way of, every answer that they submit to the teacher, becomes part of that data that is being, I mean, it's being collected on them anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
so if we could at least make it more
So think
useful,
of it
that would
think of
make
it
a lot
this
more
way.
sense.
Yeah, think of it this way. So when you step into an Uber, um, you're fully, there's a camera, there's a microphone, like you're on video with multiple cameras, right? That helps to ensure safety, and
Hmm.
ensure, lots of things. What if, there's an intervention room, where when you go into that intervention room, it's capturing as much data as possible, including a microphone, including a camera, that where it can ensure that everything is being done possible to work effectively with that student. I'm definitely on the edge of what totally sounds creepy. I realize that, but um, I'm just thinking of the more data you put into these uh, bots, the more effective they can be. So,
Hmm.
maybe there are rooms in a school or particular places where it would be acceptable to be at this level. Um, it'd be kind of nice if, while you were doing the math problem, the AI would prompt you, and coach you as you were working the math problem out on a piece of paper, just because it could see what you were doing. You didn't need to use any other technology. You had a piece of paper and a pencil, maybe even, and as you're
Hmm.
working, it's talking to you. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that truly is what we all hope that Siri is, right? And every other virtual assistant that we have, that's what we want. Like, we don't want the, hey, tell me what the college football score is. And it's like, I'm sorry, I don't see any college football scores. And you're like, the college football game is on. That's what I get from Siri most of the time. But you want that just in time, just what I need, right when I need it, without all this complexity around it. You want it to be easy and just work for you, right?
Absolutely. And you can think of it earlier. You mentioned how teachers have been differentiating, forever. That's just good teaching,
Hmm.
finding a connection, either differentiating the level of content or differentiating so that a student can pursue the what's interesting to them, right? So
Hmm.
what if the AI is like a supercharger for the curriculum that allows the teacher to differentiate? So not only are they doing chapter 2, lesson 3 of their algebra homework, but it's chapter 2, lesson 3 algebra specific to, um, that kid that wants to be a fisherman, and it's really
Hmm.
hard to explain to him why algebra is important to fishermen,
Oh my
but it
gosh,
actually is.
yes.
But it's a tailored lesson. You could think of it as a bespoke lesson that is specifically tailored for that student. No one else in the history of math students will ever receive that content exactly as how it's being presented to that student that wants nothing more than to follow in his dad's footsteps and become a fisherman. Um,
Yeah.
and having that math content not just be topically tied to fishing and the fishing industry, but actually being like fundamentally built into problems and being presented in a way that makes sense for someone who wants to be a fisherman. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just topical. It's not just like, okay, this boat starts at point B and this point starts at point C, going 10 miles an hour. Where do they meet in the middle? Not that, but fundamentally edited and tailored in a bespoke way for that student to help them, you know, do what they want to do in life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I just asked ChatGPT why to explain why algebra is important to fishermen. So it responds, there are a few ways in which algebra could be important to a fisherman. Algebra can help a fisherman understand and make predictions about how certain variables, such as the size and number of fish in a particular area, might change over time. For example, a fisherman might use algebraic equations to model the population dynamics of certain species of fish and make predictions about how the population will change in response to various factors such as fishing, pressure, temperature, and food availability, etc. So, that I think that example of how
Holy
do we
cow.
make yeah, how do we
That's
make what
amazing.
kids are I know, how do we make what kids are learning relevant to them in the moment, I think is incredibly powerful. That's what that's what we all want, right? And we can't always make those connections, but if we can, then that's pretty cool. I think
So
that's amazing.
what what's happening, what started decades and decades and decades ago in special education was students started to receive individualized learning plans. Okay,
Hmm.
so our neediest students, um, there are learning plans developed for our neediest students. Now, for our high achieving students, our gifted and talented or high achieving students, they also receive a form of individualized learning plan. In our district, it's called a student learning plan. So,
Hmm.
it's kind of funny. Like the special education students receive an IEP, the gifted and talented students receive an SLP. Well, what about the students in the middle? I remember talking to you about this many, many years ago, but it kind of feels like the future of education is that everybody has an individualized learning plan where their interests, their strengths, their goals can be addressed in education. And isn't an AI tool like how that's going to happen? A teacher can't possibly track every individualized plan, um, if there's any variety in them at least, in their classroom. But an AI couldn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that a tool that could allow this to happen?
Well, and this is the dream of every ed tech tool that has been out there, is that is exactly what would happen. But let me direct you to a podcast of episode of mine from 2017, which the title is An Individualized Education Program for Every Student, which is exactly what you're just talking about, which is that every student deserves to have a plan specifically tailored for them. And that's what my work has been since um 2014 when I went to Kodiak. That was what I was striving to do in every school that I've worked in since then.
It just it just seems like that's what has to happen. I mean, that's what has to happen eventually. That's kind of the maybe the singularity, right?
Yeah.
In education, when we get to the point where each student has their own individualized plan, then that's some form of singularity, right? In
Yeah.
education.
So, does that then take out the need for teachers, Damon?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Teachers will be more important than ever. Um, a skilled coach, a skilled relationship, a skilled person to be involved as a student is learning. That's that's how students. That's how human beings developed to learn, right?
Yeah.
We need that
Yep.
person. We need that person. I'm sure there are lots of tools out there that sell themselves as the be all end all or being able to do everything. I don't think that there's anything like that exists. We're human beings. We need to interact and work with other people. There needs to be someone involved that we trust and respect, and we want that because that's how we develop good people. That's how we develop good citizens. That's how we develop people that we want to live next to. You know,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think anybody who's saying that robots are going to take over for teachers, like,
No way.
It's
I
just
don't
not
want
going to
that.
happen. No, and that's not going to happen for any part of a teacher's job that is about connection. And um, there are probably some dystopian books and movies and TV shows out there about robots becoming too realistic and providing connection that isn't real. But I gotta tell you, man, I think great teachers are never gonna not have a job. They'll always be needed. They'll always be necessary. And even even in new ways that where a classroom teacher standing in front of 30 kids every day physically is not, that may not be forever, but people will always need other people to help guide them down paths. That's just all there is to it. We need that connection. We need
We
other
want
people. We
that.
need,
Yeah,
yeah, we desire it.
absolutely.
And I do not want to just go to a computer to tell me all the things that I need to learn, but I do want to get a lot of stuff from the internet or from chatbots or whatever the case may be, whatever the next thing they're going to create is. But I still want to connect with a real human being as much as possible.
Absolutely. And if you're, kind of going back to that slogan that we keep talking about, if you're a teacher who spends all their time assigning, uh, that may be replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there may be systems that come in that can replace that. I don't know that we need just that. You've got to have more than that. You've got. I don't necessarily. I don't know that each teacher has to have um, a super high level relationship with all of their students. I think that that's one of many positive effects that teachers can have on students. Um, but it's not the be all end all. I think we talk about that a lot. Relationships are definitely important, but it doesn't mean that the teacher has to be the student's friend. I guess that's all I'm trying to say. If the
Mm-hmm.
students respect the teacher and want to work with the teacher and be coached by the teacher and led by the teacher, that doesn't necessarily have to be um, somebody that you hug at the door every day.
Mm-hmm.
uh, it can look a little different. So the teachers, I guess I'm saying this to say we're not just needing a warm body to smile at the students. There's a lot more to that relationship than just that. The AI can't offer that, but also the relationship with the teacher is more than that. It's more than just someone who can be positively effectual with a student.
Mm-hmm.
It's more
Yeah.
sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly. It's about having a real relationship, not just a kind, encouraging word. It's about knowing who the person is and caring about them as an individual. And every person needs that, but not, but a teacher doesn't have to have that with every single student they have.
Yeah, and maybe the student doesn't the student's getting that from other places. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
um, there are certainly schools where the only positive relationship that the student has is their teacher, but that's not like that everywhere. Sometimes that student just needs a really good math teacher who can who
Yeah,
can lead them, coach them, uh,
yeah,
present, help make connections. Help
yeah,
help teach the student how to use the AI bot
yeah.
to access what interests them and lead them along. You know,
Yeah. So I'm glad you added that last point because that's really important also, that sometimes you just need somebody to tell you shut up and listen and learn how to do this thing, right? And and if that, like, I've had good math teachers, I've had bad math teachers, and on different access, I've had focused math teachers and math teachers I could get off track by asking them about something else, and they were so concerned about being my friend or being friendly that they didn't actually teach me any math. And sometimes you need something on either spectrum of that, and that that's a real thing too. And so
Yeah.
I put another thing in that one of the things that I used with my own daughter was she was hassling me about giving her ideas for writing a Christmas story. And I was like, I am tired. I want to go to bed. She's supposed to be in bed, but she's going to go down and write at her bedtime as a way to like calm down and finish off her day. And that's fine to do that. But I couldn't think of anything. I was totally frazzled and could not come up with any ideas for any kind of story. So I put it in ChatGPT and said, give me 10 ideas for a Christmas story that an 11-year-old could write. And I just needed something to
Jeez.
give her so she'd stop bugging me. And and that was great. And it was wonderful because it helped me be a more involved dad by giving her what she needed at the time when I did not have it in me to give her what she needed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, that makes sense. What that allowed you to do, Jethro, is you could transition from being like a pinball machine or a lottery machine, just feeding out some ideas, to quickly producing a list and then sitting along beside her and then actually having the more sophisticated conversation about what each story might look like, you know?
Exactly. And
I think that's great.
I did have the energy for that, but I did not have the energy for coming up with something. Because then I move into a different position also. Instead of giving her ideas, I say, how do you think that you would write a
Yeah,
story about a group of friends that goes on a quest to find the
you can have
perfect
a
Christmas tree
discussion.
for their town? Yes, exactly. And that's the thing that is harder to replicate with AI, and the thing that I actually want to spend time doing with my daughter.
So earlier, I want to go back to one of the questions I asked you about. The the question in regards to what will have the largest effect size. So students cheating, getting away with cheating, versus how teachers will be enabled in their development of curriculum. Like what's going to have the biggest effect size? I want to talk a little bit more about that. I
Yeah.
think so. Just imagine a chat bot like this in a third world country or in a location that doesn't have access to any curriculum. You know, we're here trying to figure out between McGraw Hill and National Geographic. Well, there are lots of people in the world that don't have anything. Uh, they do have an internet connection. Um, they're not going to be able to purchase any textbooks to come in. They've been using the internet, Khan Academy, and lots of other tools,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been good. But maybe they have limited access to teachers. Maybe they have limited access to curriculum in their own language. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they have, there's all kinds of limitations. Um, how does a curriculum company compete in these kind of fringe markets? Maybe they don't even want to. Um, and then ultimately, how does a traditional curriculum company compete with a database of lesson plans going back 50 years, let's say, paired with demographical data and an AI?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
does a traditional curriculum company compete with that? Like, what are they going to do?
Well, I mean, like once a teacher understands that they can use that instead of the textbook or even the very poorly designed and hard to access textbook website that comes with it that is supposed to provide these additional tools, they're not going to touch the textbook anymore. And they already don't. I mean, that's the reality too. Like what is so beautiful about Khan Academy is that you can find a specific topic, get taught on that specific thing, and then move on. And that's sufficient in a lot of ways. Now imagine that you had information about the student, data about how they've done in the past, and knew what mistakes they've made in the past, so that you could then say, here's the perfect instructional video for you because of the mistakes that you've made in the past. So when they're explaining the Pythagorean theorem and know that you have trouble with square roots and squares, they already know that this video that's going to explain that specifically in a different way that works for better for people who have trouble with square roots and squares, like, that is genius. That's amazing. You would go to that every single day for help in understanding that content, because it would know where you struggle and be able to be prepared for you to be successful.
It's a game changer. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is anybody else talking about this yet? Or is it all just on the other end, just talking about how it's going to lead to plagiarism?
Well, the vast majority of what I've seen is how it's going to lead to plagiarism, and especially in the education circles. So, that's
So you're tied into this a lot more than I am. Is there anybody out there who is following this or developing this or working on something like what we're talking about that we need to pay attention to?
I'm not aware of anybody, but I would love to hear if anybody out there is aware of somebody. I would love to interview them. I would love to get their work shared out there more, because, like, I think that this definitely can be a game changer, and it can be really just a huge boon for education to really, I mean, my big frustration is that schools that have been in Title I status and failing schools for years and years and years, and nothing ever changes, despite all the money we throw at those schools, all the effort we put into it, all the hard, dedicated people working so dang hard to help these kids be successful. And the only measure that we really have that anybody cares about is still in the tank, again and again and again. It just breaks my heart to see that happen over and over again.
Just beating our head against the wall.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are doing it, and I just, honestly, I haven't been looking for them, but I'm sure somebody is. And again, if you happen to hear this and you're doing it or know someone who is, then let's talk and let's find a way to get them more exposure and help share what they're doing.
It's going to be okay. So, what do you think the timeline on this is? Are we? So we've all seen the latest these latest AI machine learning tools coming out. Whether it's in art or text, what? How far away are we from seeing this in education tied in with live student data of some sort and paired with a localized database of curriculum? How distant is that?
I mean, it can't be that far. So, like, when you look at the ChatGPT stuff, it's been trained on information uh
2 years
prior
ago.
to that. Yeah, 2019, I think, is when the date is. So, because it basically doesn't really understand anything about the pandemic, from, if I remember right, or somewhere around there. So there's
Yeah.
not much information for that. So if you it's taken 2 years to get to this point, let's say. Um, I think maybe another 2 years out from here, and um, that could be where it's at. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's that far. I think the harder thing is going to be getting teachers to accept it and adopt it. Like, it, I don't know, that seems like the bigger challenge. I see kids using this to make their lives easier by answering questions that their teachers are asking and doing essays
Mm.
that their teachers are asking them to do. I see kids doing that right away, because they know that it doesn't matter and it doesn't mean anything. So because it doesn't mean anything, they don't want to put any time or effort into it. And you and I have both seen kids put tons of time and effort into things that actually matter to them. And so if we can do, if we can help teachers see that this would be beneficial for them, I think they could get on board with it eventually. But I don't think they're looking at it like that. They're only seeing, well, now kids are going to answer my questions really easily. But like, this is how things go with that, with new technology, right?
So, how long, let me put it this way. How long until there is a PowerSchool plugin that you can purchase that gives you access to just crawling all of your student data to help you find some of the things that human eyes can't see? So not necessarily instructional, but just
Mm-hmm.
demographical, attendance, maybe some behavior data, all kinds of demographics,
You
type of
know,
programs.
I think there's already something out there that does that, actually. I feel like I've heard that somebody is using something like that to get data um, and insights from.
I've seen sophisticated queries and I've seen sophisticated algorithms. I've not seen proper AI that goes in not knowing anything and looks
Mhm.
at everything and then starts telling you things that you need to know.
Yeah, yeah,
It feels like it's coming.
yeah. I'm sure it is. I'd say by next school year somebody's going to be doing it. That's only 8 months from now.
Mm. Well, they already have these tools built, right? So really it's
Hmm.
about giving them new data sets and training them
Hmm.
on new data. Do you know anything about how the training works?
I
Like,
don't know very much about it. No.
so like my question would be, does the AI maybe it's trained on some big school districts and then a small school district buys it and then is like what kind of bias will be inherent when it's
Hmm.
presented with a new data set? You know, there's all kinds of potentially ethical questions about that, right?
Yeah,
One of the
totally.
criticisms of chat G what is it, GPT?
Yep. Hmm.
Um, one of the criticisms of chat GPT is that it doesn't show sources. Now you can ask for a source and it'll tell you,
Hmm.
but when it writes a critique of something, it doesn't tell you the sources that it pulled from. And kind of one of the questions is it kind of just rewriting something that's already been written? Is it just kind of merging a few articles? Is it, where is it on the continuum of plagiarism when it's putting those things together? When is it creating something new? You know, so that's kind of interesting. Um, but when it's trained and then when it's given new data, how will it react is still kind of
Hmm.
unknown.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could see
That.
school districts needing to be very careful if they are utilizing the AI. Is the AI trained on someone else's data or is it trained on their data? And how much
Hmm.
influence has been applied to it with data that's not really applicable to that school? You know how it is here in Alaska. There's a lot of cultural, kind of unique cultural elements, and I don't know, just not necessarily mainstream minorities in the United States, if that makes any sense. There are minority populations here that aren't necessarily thought of a whole lot in mainstream American culture. So
Yeah.
when we start looking at curriculum, when we look at tools, if we looked at an AI and how an AI might lead us or suggest things to us or influence us, we would need to be very careful about um, inherent biases in the AI.
Yeah, that's true. And that's something that I don't know the answer to, but it's it's likely going to be in there. So yeah, well, this has been a good conversation, Damon. Thank you as always.
Yeah, man. I'm just taking a walk here. It's a beautiful night here in Kodiak. It's not raining.
Yeah, that means beautiful.
I can see some stars. I see like 5 stars. So they're peeking through the clouds.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for pushing this. I appreciate it, and glad we could do it. And we really should talk more. This is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. If you ever come across an article or come across an idea, we can do an impromptu Twitter space. Sometimes it's hard to plan them, but impromptu sometimes is fun. So.
Yeah, it is. And I don't care that nobody showed up. I mean, we had two people here in the beginning, and I appreciate that. But it's always good talking to you and getting my thoughts out outside of myself. So thank you. Oh, there you are.
Absolutely,
All
man.
right, you want to sign off, Damon?
Yep. I got Heidi calling me, so that means I'm late. So I will let you go, Jethro. Thanks so much, man. I'll talk to you later, brother.
All right. Give Heidi my love, man. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.